Hello YouTube, welcome back to another episode of Folky Fridays. This is number 52. In today's episode I'm going to be talking about drop D tuning because it's very popular tuning and I don't really make enough videos about it. I personally use it all the time. What I tend to do is play in standard if I'm playing along with tunes in keys that fit well with standard, like A minor, E minor, G. But then if it's a tune in a key like D minor, sometimes A minor I quite like in drop D as well. Any D kind of key basically, or often G as well. G works really well in drop D. So it's nice for a bit of variation, and it's nice to be able to switch into, if you're playing in D sounds very weak and thin in standard tuning because you've got only 4 strings. The lowest bass note you can get on D chord in standard tuning is the D string, which is not really low enough. So if you do drop the D down, you get this real nice big kind of chunky bottom end on your D chord. So it's really good for D, and considering that so much folk music is in the key of D, it's very handy. So yeah, that's what I'll be talking about today. If you are watching out there, then do drop us a comment in the chat and let us know who you are and where you're playing and so on. And I'd also be interested to know if you are someone who's played with drop D quite a bit before, or if you're completely new to it, just so I know how in-depth to go. The thing that's kind of made me want to do this topic this week is because I've been making a series of videos about John Doyle, and John Doyle always plays in drop D pretty much, especially when you see him doing backing tunes. He tends to be in drop D most of the time, and it's an interesting one because I find that standard is easier for certain keys, but you see people out there who do all the keys in drop D and make it sound good, and there's a few kind of stock shapes that they use to get that to work. So I'm going to be running you through some of those today, which is not really something that I've touched upon much on the channel. Of course, if you have got any questions, as ever, just pop them in the chat and I will get back to you as well. And if there's anything particular you would like to know about, then just ask away and I'll get back to you as well. Hiya Frank, thanks for tuning in. All ears, hopefully some fingers and arms as well. Cool. Yeah, so let's have a look at some chord shapes. If the first thing with drop D is that if you... hey Andy, thanks for tuning in. Nice to see you on here. Yeah, the first thing with drop D is if you are using standard chord shapes, any chord shape where you would normally miss the bottom string, so any chord shape whose root note is on the A string, like a C, or A, an A minor, anything like that, B minor, you can still use all those shapes. So any shape where you wouldn't normally play the bottom string is going to be fine. Just still don't play the bottom string, it'll be exactly the same shape. There's a few extras to that. If you've got any shape where the root note is D, obviously you can add the bottom string in now, so a D chord plays all the strings, D minor, things like that. So yeah, that's your kind of starting point. You don't really have to learn many new shapes to get started in this tuning. If you want a chord where the root note is normally on the bottom string, the thing to bear in mind is that whatever the root note was in standard tuning, if we look at like a G major chord, because you've dropped that bottom string down a tone, that's going to mean that your bottom string note would have to go up 2 frets in order for the chord to be the same. So for a normal G chord that's like that in standard, I would have to play it with one of my fingers on the 5th fret of the bottom string, something like that, which I don't even know if I can do it. Just about, but it's a struggle. So if you've got a chord where the root note's on the bottom string, there are some new shapes to learn. But there's two really useful shapes which you can do a huge amount with by doing something that I call tromboning, which is where you just take a shape and slide it around. That kind of thing. You just take one shape and shift it. So that shape I was using there, this is, I call it the John Doyle octave shape, because you see John Doyle do it all the time. It's kind of a very bland chord, but it works well for just going along under tunes, especially if you're playing fast, because you can take that one shape and move it round and get all the chords you could possibly need. So what you do, if you wanted to make, let's say we're in the key of D, so our chord 4 is G. Where's my mode wheel so I can show you that? There it is. So if we're in the key of D, there's our chord 1, which is D. Our chord 4 is G, round there somewhere. There it is. Chord 1 is D, chord 4 is G, and chord 5 is A. So for the D chord, because it's a D tuning, we can play all the strings. For the A chord, the root note is the A string, so we could just play a normal A chord. But for G, we're going to need to find a way of doing a G chord. If you want an amazing mode wheel, by the way, you can find them on the folkfriend.co.uk shop, and you can also find them on the brand new finaleguitar.co.uk online shop, which has got loads of instruments and accessories, strings, tuners, capos, all that good stuff. So if you want to support the channel, go check out the Finale Guitar online shop. That'd be great. But yeah, and also Folk Friend shop has got all my books and the mode wheel and various other things on it as well, so go check that out. But yeah, so with this G chord, if the open string is D, we're going to have E on the 2nd fret, F sharp on the 4th, and G is going to be on the 5th fret. So I'm going to put my ring finger on that 5th fret on the G, and then I'm going to put my little finger on the D string, the D string that's always a D string, you know. Same fret as well, because those are going to be both my root note then. So I've got an octave of the root note, so that'll give me a real nice bass for my chord. If you think about the next string up, that's a G string anyway, so that's G, G, G. And then I'm going to put my index finger on the D note on the 3rd fret of the B string. So what I've got there is just roots and fifths. So when you're building chords, you always have a root and a fifth. The root and the fifth are like, the root just tells your ears how to interpret a chord, what is it based on. The fifth just backs up the root. The fifth is a very clear harmony with the root. Putting those two notes together just fills out your chord. But that as a chord is really very, emotionally it's very bland. It doesn't really have any, it's just like, I'm a big old strident chord, but it's not got any nuance, you know. If it was a TV show, it would be like, what's completely bland, I don't know, Love Island or something, it wouldn't be. Whereas if you add a major third in, now it's got a bright cheery quality to it, and if you add a minor third, now it's got a dark miserable quality to it. So the third is what makes your chords have some sort of depth to them. So if you've got this root and fifth shape though, it's neither major nor minor because it's not got a third to tell you how to feel about it. And that's why this shape is good for tromboning, because if I take my G chord here, I just move it up 2 frets and block off the G string by like muting it with my my little finger. Just rest that little finger gently on the G string. Now I've got an A chord instead. And if I move it up 2 more, I've got a B chord, which in this case, if we're in the key of D, the key of D major has a B minor chord in it, as you can see there on the wheel. So in this instance, I'm using it as a B minor chord, but it could be either. It could be a B major because it's not got a third. So anyway, so what that means is if I'm starting out in D, I can play all the chords in the key of D using this one shape. I start off with D. If I wanted to make this shape for E, well, my index finger, if you think about the shape, the index finger is 2 frets behind the other 2 fingers, in a way. So my index finger's kind of fallen off the bottom of the fretboard if I'm doing it for E. So with E I've got my ring finger on the 2nd fret, and I've got my little finger on the 2nd fret of the other D string as well. And if I play all the strings, that's a kind of E minor. That's my chord 2. The 3rd note in a D major scale is F sharp, so I'm going to move up to the 4th fret, make my shape again. And you can hear if I leave those open strings in, it's kind of horrible, but if I let my fingers just go a bit flat so that they're muting all the open strings, then it's fine. Then I go up 1 fret and I've got G. Up 2 more I've got A. And up 2 more and I've got B minor. Or just B really. You do, if you're into reading like books about guitar chords, you'll quite often see people refer to these kinds of chords that haven't got thirds in as modal. They'll call it like a G modal or a B modal. I think that's misleading because the modes aren't thirdless, the modes aren't lacking in emotional depth at all. So I don't like calling them modal chords, so I don't call them that. But that's what people mean. If you see a modal chord referred to, it means a chord that's not got a third in it and is therefore neither clearly minor nor major. Anyway, yeah, so I'll just so you can see the effectiveness of tromboning with this one simple shape, I'm going to get my Made Behind the Bar play along, which is free, and I'm going to play along with it, and I'm just going to use a D major chord and that one shape slid around the neck. I'll put it on the, let's do it on the medium speed, I think. When it loads, here we go. Something like that. So you can see it's kind of okay. It does the job. Yeah, they're fun. They're fun and easy, and they're really good if you're playing really fast and you just want to provide a sort of nice functional backing. Then just sliding that one shape around can be a real good, easy way of doing it. So yeah, that's that. The next shape I wanted to show you is a similar idea, but you can still trombone it, but this time it's got a third in it as well as roots and fifths, which gives it a lot more depth. It makes it slightly more complicated to find the right chord when you're thinking fast, but I'll also show you some ways that you can practice that so that you'll get the hang of it. So if we're staying with the key of D major, my chord 4 is G, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my middle finger now on the bottom string. That's going to go on the 5th fret to give me my G bass note. And then I'm going to put the index finger on the 4th fret of the G string. And that now is giving me the major third. So I've got G and B. And with your ring finger, you've got some options for what you do with that. If you want, you can put it on the same fret of the A string, which gives you a 5th. So that makes your chord sound a bit more full. That's what I personally tend to do. I like that sound. If you're feeling lazy or you're playing fast and you can't get it on in time, you can just leave that finger off and let your middle finger mute the A string. So if your middle finger's just a bit flat, it'll naturally stop the A string from ringing out. So that works okay, and it's maybe a bit easier. And the other thing is, if you want a more rooty, more folky kind of sound, stick your ring finger on the other D string on the same fret, and then you'll have 2 root notes at the bottom of whatever chord you're playing. Personally, I like the 5th. I think that gives you the fullest sounding chord, as opposed to... I suppose it's quite a subtle difference, but... Anyway, so that's a G major chord. And what you can do with this shape, if I slide it up 2, it's an A major chord. With the top 2 strings in, it's an A major with some extra notes in it, but they sound quite nice, so I'd just leave them in. Depends how floaty you want your backing to get as well. If you want something thick and definite, then you just keep the bottom 4 strings in. And if you want something floaty and ethereal, you leave the top 2 in. That kind of thing. And it's nice to play with contrast with that as well, you know, if you play through a set and you make it more floaty and ethereal, and then you suck it back in and go back to just chunky bass notes, that can actually add a lot of energy to your set, maybe the 3rd time through the tune or whatever. Going back to this shape then, if I wanted to make a complete chord scale of D using that shape, I can do it. And the way that I do it is, if I play my G major again, if I took that index finger and I moved it down a fret, I've made it into a minor type chord instead of a major type chord. So here it's major, index down a finger, it's become a G minor instead. And what you can do is move that shape around, and dependent which chord you want, you just move the index finger to the right position. So just, if we have another little look at my mode wheel here, there's my list of chords for the key of D. We've got D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A major, B minor. And actually the C sharp diminished you can kind of do with this shape as well. I'll show you how to do that at the end. So in order, if I go through, here's D major, just plain old D. E minor, so if I make an E major using that shape, then if my index finger goes back 1 to make it into a minor, you can see it's fallen off the top of the fretboard there. So E minor is just going to be 2 fingers, leaving my little snail eyes there. So that's E minor like that. It's an E minor 7 if you play all the strings, but functionally E minor, it sounds good. Then I'm going to move that shape up 2 frets and put my index finger on the G string like 2 frets behind the other 2, and that'll give me an F sharp minor chord. Again, with some extra notes in it if you leave the top couple of strings in. I quite like that sort of slightly tortured sounding F sharp minor. It doesn't sound very nice in its own right, but if you play it in context leading into G, it's like all that kind of tension resolves itself when you carry on up, so that's quite nice really. So G's my chord 4 with the index finger in the major position. A's my chord 5 up on the 7th fret. And then if I go up 2 more and put it in the minor position, I've got my B minor chord, which is my chord 6. And for all of those chords, if you noticed, I mean, the top 2 strings sound quite nice in them, even though the top 2 strings are B and E, which related to D is the 13th and the 9th. They actually sound pretty good, you know, it just gives you a kind of floatier, jazzier kind of version of the chords. But if you want, you can leave them out just by flattening one of your fingers or just not strumming them, and that'll give you a much more definite, folky, traditional kind of sound. So something like that. Just on the very last chord there as well, I generally tend to say for beginner guitarists that chord 7 should be left out because it doesn't sound very nice. Chord 7 in the key of D is C sharp diminished. But what you can actually do is, if you play the minor shape on C sharp, and you just do it without your ring finger doing anything, so you've just got a root and a minor third, and what you want to do is let your finger go flat so that it's muting both the A and the D string, then that can be chord 7, and then you can go. Those kinds of things. So it's that whole chord progression was just moving those shapes around. Obviously you need to get your chord 5s in the right place, and if the tune sounds like it's got a chord 4 section, then you need to play either G or B minor, or E minor, because those are, you know, related to one another. But yeah, basically the world is your oyster when you get into this tromboning thing, because it's very easy to just move that shape around quickly, and it always sounds pretty nice in the key of D. So I'll run through a little bit of the Made Behind the Bar play along again, and I'm going to just play. Now I'm just going to play these chords that have got roots and thirds in, and nothing else apart from a D major, maybe. I may also use as well this shape or this shape. These are both D. This one is very easy. It's like a power chord but missing the middle finger. So you've got D, 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 D. And if you put your little finger on, then you get a major third, which is really nice, easy chord. I'll be coming back to that in a little bit as well, because there's a few others that I like to put with that one. But yeah, so here we go with the tune. Kind of thing. So yeah, there's loads of possibilities for that. If you want to have a go playing along with this Made Behind the Bar play along, by the way, you can find it for free on my YouTube channel, and it's for free on the Folk Friend website as well. I will put a little link in the chat, and I'll put it in the description when this finishes as well. Let me just find it. It is... In fact, I'll just link to the videos page, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 free play-alongs on there as well. There we go. If you want to find a pack of 20 play-alongs as well, which come with descriptions of why the chords work, and loads of different options for the chords, and a written guide to how you can take the ideas from those chords and use them in other keys and in other tunes. Also free chord diagrams included, and on-screen guitar chords, 3 different speeds. Really, really useful. Go on the Folk Friend shop and get yourself a Folk Friend membership, which is 20 quid, which is £1 a tune, and so you'll get absolutely loads of tunes to practice along with, and loads of chord diagrams and all that good stuff. Yeah. Frank, it is also easy to find the 1, 2, 3, 4 chords by counting the fret number without thinking what chord is that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, That's a really good point actually, Frank. You know, if you I've written this down so many times now that I've made a little bit of paper which I've just pinned up. Let me just grab it. So yeah, if you think about a major scale, these are the intervals in a major scale here. Let me see if you can see that. Oh yeah, you can. Cool. So these are the intervals in a major scale. You've got tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. A tone on a guitar is a gap of 2 frets, and a semitone on a guitar is a gap of 1. So if you wanted to do this pattern of intervals on a guitar, let me see if I can hold it up so you can see both. That would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah, there we go. So in this instance, D is our starting point. So to go up a tone is going to take us onto the 2nd fret. To go up the 2nd tone is going to take us 2 more frets up, so onto the 4th. Then a semitone takes us onto the 5th. Then a tone takes us onto the 7th. Another tone, 9th. And then another tone onto the 11th. And one more tone, we're on the 12th, and that's back where we start. Sorry, one more semitone rather, we're on the 12th, and that's back where we started on D. So that's where the places where these chord shapes work comes from. If you can picture where your major scale is on the bottom string, then you know where to put these shapes. And if you are using the John Doyle style octave shape that I showed you at the start, that's my major scale played using that shape. The 7th one, don't use it, it sounds terrible, but all the others, usable for backing stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the key of D major. You can take the same ideas and apply them to the key of D minor. If you were, let's say we're playing in D minor then, if we've got a tune, let me find a suitable play along for this. Got one in D minor somewhere? Fahi's Real, perfect, that's in D Dorian. So yeah, here's a tune, Fahi's, in D Dorian. If I waggle my mode wheel round here, we can see D Dorian's got the same notes in it as C major would, C Ionian. So my chords are going to be D minor, E minor, F sharp, no, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and C. So if I wanted to work those out, if I'm using my octave shape, it's going to be something like that. In the same way that we missed out the diminished chord before, we're going to leave out the diminished chord here. So we're not going to use the B one, because that's a diminished chord. It just doesn't, the diminished chord just never sounds good, basically, and particularly with the octave shape, just don't bother, it sounds dreadful. So all the others though are fine, so I'd have D minor, something like that, and it's really nice, nice usable backing material that for a tune in D minor. The other thing is, if I wanted to add my thirds in for a bit more depth to my chords, I could use my trombonable third shape. So, if we're in D minor, we want D minor to start with, E minor, F major. F is on the 3rd fret, and the major index finger is 1 fret behind on the G string. So that's a kind of F major. If you leave the top couple of strings in, I think that's really nice. That's an F major 7 with a B added to it, which is oh, it's a sharp 11, isn't it? Yeah, it's a sharp 11, so it's a kind of Lydian sounding F chord. But yeah, nice chord anyway. Then we've got chord 4. Chord 4's major in Dorian, so we've got G major. Then A minor, chord 5. We're going to skip out B and go straight on to C, and that's going to be C major way up on the 10th. So that's all the chords, and then if you go on to the 12th and make the minor shape, you've got D minor again. Kind of sounds like a moody pop song. That kind of thing. So I'll just quickly, I'll have a little run through Fahey's on the medium speed, and I'll show you some things that you could do with just sliding that shape around so you can hear what it sounds like. Etc. That's, yeah, further applications of that. One last thing on this as well, eagle-eyed viewers amongst you will have noticed that I wasn't actually just playing Dorian chords there. I was using a bit of a mixture of Dorian and Aeolian, and that is a thing that you can do in minor keys. You can mix and match between Dorian and Aeolian. So in that case I was using a combination of B and B flat and a combination of G major and G minor. I'm not going to go into that too much in this video because I've talked about it lots in the past, but have a look on folkfriend.co.uk, go on the videos page. There's one in the I believe it's in the chord scales for modes section, or maybe music theory, somewhere on there anyway. There's a video called The Most Useful Secret for Minor Keys, or some similarly clickbait title like that. That'll tell you how to mix and match between the Dorian and Aeolian chord sets for interesting effects. Another thing that drop D is good for is playing in G, and exactly the same chord shapes can be used. So your G, G minor, A minor, B minor, C major, D, E minor, F sharp diminished we're going to do with the minor shape but just without the 5th, and then G. So that's again the same shape, It works well as well for A Dorian, because that's the same as G, so you could do... that kind of thing. So it's all exactly the same idea, just using that one shape. One very last thing I wanted to say on this as well, chromatic linking. If you've got any two chords that are separated by a tone, and you're going to go from one to the other, either upwards or downwards, then you can shift the shape chromatically between them. So if, with my A minor example there, for example, I was about to say, if I've got A going to G, I go like that. So I'm just taking my A minor shape, then moving the bottom two notes in it down a fret, but leaving the third finger where it is, and then going down to the G. I could do that the other way around as well. So that would be a nice way to finish a section. Something like that. Let's take two other chords that are separated by a tone. We've got, for example, chord 4 would be D, chord 5 would be E minor. So I could go like that, or backwards. If I was playing in using Aeolian type chords, where I've got F as my 6th chord, then my 7th chord would be G, so I could go and just shift the same shape like that. So I'm doing a little chromatic link there, and the same backwards. If I was going down, I might do something like that. So you can always just slide between two shapes. Yeah, totally agree, Mike. Now I understand why Keith Richards of the Stones loved Drop D so much. Lots of tone without big work. Yeah, completely. It sounds big and beefy, and you don't really have to learn many new chord shapes. One very last thing for Andy, if he's still watching. Andy, for everyone else, Andy has guitar lessons off me and has done for quite a while now. And we've been playing recently with using like major 7s, minor 7s, and kind of slidable shapes for those in standard tuning. And the other day we were having a look at some drop D stuff, and we haven't got onto Tetrad shapes for drop D yet, I don't think. There are some, and they sound quite nice. So I'm just going to show you one very quick example in the key of G major, and then I'm going to finish up for today. So if you're in the key of G major, if you put your do littlest fingers 3 and 4, on the bottom 2 strings on the 5th fret, that gives you a root and a 5th. And if you then put your index finger and your middle finger on the 4th fret of the next 2 strings, that gives you a major 7th and a major 3rd. So that there is a G major 7 chord, and if you leave the top 2 strings in, it becomes a G major 13 with the E added to it. So if you're playing along with like a mellow tune in the key of G, like Out on the Ocean, then this will be a really nice chord 1. Chord 2, if you were using Tetrads in the key of G, would be A minor. So we're going to take this shape up 2 frets, and we're going to move both the index and the middle finger back 1. That is going to convert the 7th into a flattened 7th, and the 3rd into a flattened 3rd. So now we've got a minor 7 chord. And again, if we leave the top 2 in, we've got a jazzier minor chord. We've got a A minor 9. Chord 3 in the key of G is B minor, so we take that minor 7 shape and slide it up 2, and we get... then I'm going to go back to A minor. And this here, this little triangle, is the 7 chord triangle. That's a D7 chord, because you've got a root, a third, and a flattened 7th. So you can do G major 7, da 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 da, A minor 7, da 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 da, B minor 7, da 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 da, A minor 7, D7, G, something like that. Oh, he's still here. Cool. Yeah, so that's that's for you, Andy. There you go. It's Tetrads in drop D. And in the same way, you can do the chromatic links. This here is C major 7 using the same little arpeggio triangle, root major 3rd, major 7th. Something like that. So yeah, there's endless scope for what you can do in drop D, really. I will be not delving any further into that endless scope today, however, as I've got a video on John Doyle to edit before tomorrow lunchtime, so I better get cracking on with it. But yeah, thank you all very much for tuning in. Does anyone have any questions about anything before I sign off for today? Or anything particular you'd like to see next? Oh, people who are still watching as well, do us a favour, go and hit the little like button, because if you hit that, then YouTube, the algorithm goes... Ooh, it must be good, and shows my videos to more people, so very helpful. Now we just have to wait 5 minutes for it to catch up, and then I'll see whether anybody had any questions. Thank you to whoever just hit the like button. Cheers. Cool. Can you suggest a Stones song using it? I can't. Michael, can you suggest a Stones song using it? I bet Google could suggest one if not, but have a look. Will we get more ads? I don't know. I'm not sure on that one, Frank. Did you get ads today? Because I have recently finally hit the thing to actually get paid by YouTube for making these videos. I'm not sure how it works with ads on live streams. I know with my normal videos it puts an ad at the beginning and the end. and that way I get like a couple of pence for every 1,000 people that watch it. I'm not sure how it works with these, whether it puts one at the beginning or what. But yeah, it will continue to display. If it is currently displaying ads, it will continue to display them. But I'm not too sure whether it actually does on live streams or not. Oh, actually, I think if I click this, I think it might display an ad. See if it does. No ads on live. Ah, okay. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. There is actually a little button at my end that I can click, but I always forget to click it, to be honest. So I've just clicked it now. But if you didn't get an advert then evidently not. You're all good. You're ad free. I've just tried googling this thing about Keith Richards and Drop D. There's a lot of ones in Open G, apparently. I can't find any. Oh, hang on. What's Brown Sugar in? Is that in G? Yeah, that's in G. Yeah, I can't find any off the top of Google's list for Drop D, but I'm sure there will be if you dig about. Who knows? Cool. All right then. Well, thank you all very much for tuning in. On that cheery note, I am going to go and have some tea. Tomorrow afternoon there will be part 2 of John Doyle chords. It's going to be a lot of similar stuff to what I've been talking about today. A couple of extra things and some interesting examples from that really good clip of him playing with Liz Carroll in Boston in 2009 as well. So check that out. It'll be out tomorrow afternoon at 12:30. Get in touch as well if there's anything particular you'd like to see more content on, or just to say hello. It's always nice to hear from people. It's info@folkfriend.co.uk, and I will see you all for some sort of live stream next Friday evening as well, 5:30. Bye bye.